All right, it's good to be back. Welcome to the weigh-in. There's so much to talk about. I've been gone for a while, right? So it's always every time I do that, there's a lot to talk about. I'm not really sure what's most important to talk about right now. I'm just gonna kind of go and to see where I go with it, right? And see where it goes. So let's start off with Terence Crawford, who had a great performance. Like I said, it was a random opponent. I had on my Instagram, I was saying it's a random opponent. It's a random matchup, right? It didn't have a storyline. Top Rank has not really been able to create a storyline for Terence Crawford, and that's really important matchmaking wise to create a matchup that like you build to that makes sense, right? They did it maybe with the Ndongo, but that was about it, honestly. Like matchups that made sense. That was like the last one they did that made sense for him, and everything else had just been like something they could scrap together, right? And hopefully that people could see. And Bob Arum complained because he said he's losing money with Terence Crawford. And there's no doubt he is losing money with Terence Crawford. It's not Terence Crawford's fault, right? It's not Terence Crawford. I think Bob Arum's being honest, but the reason why Bob Arum's being honest is because he knows he's going to lose Terence Crawford to probably most likely the PBC. And that's just the way it is. I mean, Bob Arum made a bet that he knew Terence Crawford's talent, right? And they had I don't think they knew that Terence Crawford was going to be that talented, but when they had him, they didn't want to let him go, right? And they imagined this was kind of honestly too like they had got the big deal with ESPN, right? And he threw money, he needed names, and he thought that Terence Crawford was going to be able to draw big names, and it never did because the PBC owns 147, right? They own all the good fighters. They have for years. They've owned all the good fighters in 147. So Terence Crawford's been on an island, right, by himself, dominating, right, in tough fights, but not big names, not great storylines where it's fighting, not great not great build up, nothing like that. Just kind of like, hey, Terence Crawford's gonna fight. Who's gonna fight? I don't know. We found a guy, and that's cool, but it doesn't. Since Sal doesn't make money, doesn't like a casual fan is not really interested in that. Now that did a million, right? That did a million views, that boxing fight. So that's good. That's like promising, right? But there was no crowd, whatever. They probably paid Terence Crawford around $2 million for that fight, and it probably didn't generate that type of money. I mean, the million views, that's really good. But everything else, like about Terence Crawford's fights, are probably not generating that much views, right? And he's not a pay-per-view guy because he needs a dance partner to be a pay-per-view guy. Now, Terence Crawford is one of the best fighters in the world. To me, he's like top three, probably. He's probably like 1 and 2. I would say Canelo's number one, pound for pound. Terence Crawford's number two. And he fought actually him and Crawford and who the hell is Cal Brook. Cal Brook, right? He fought a good Cal Brook, and we weren't sure what Cal Brook we were gonna get, and we got a good one actually. And everything that showed me, it was a sharp Cal Brook. He was in the weight that he was supposed to be at. He was in shape. He looked strong, and nothing about that. That was a good Cal Brook, and Terence Crawford was far superior to him, right? It was far superior to him, but he's still not gonna get the credit because Cal Brook's coming off of it when in his big fights he lost both of them. And that's what everything people remember. So he's not going to get much credit for it. Now, he looked great in it, and it builds people's imaginations of what he could look like against the top guys in the 147, but we're not going to see it with him in Top Rank. So we're probably going to go another year with Terence Crawford not fighting anyone really. In 2021, Terence Crawford's not going to get a good matchup maybe until the end of the year when he can leave Top Rank and go to PBC. Now, will Top Rank just release him? I don't know. It doesn't sound like Bob Arum's going to do that. I think he's going to try to get this Pacquiao fight. That's not going to happen. Every time I hear like some amazing match, some like, made up matchup in your head, like with Pacquiao versus McGregor or Pacquiao versus Crawford, and then it's like in, Abu Dhabi or something like that. I don't buy that. I just think that's just a lot of talk. So I don't think that's going to happen, right? And why would Pacquiao fight Terence Crawford? If there's a Conor fight, right, and that's way less threatening of a fight, and probably honestly more money in that fight. And they're both in Abu Dhabi, whatever. Why would Pacquiao take? I don't think either of those fights is real, right? But why would he take a Terence Crawford fight? Like that's way more riskier, way harder fight. If Pacquiao wins that fight, like honestly, he would surpass Floyd. Like it would not be debatable. He would be surpass Floyd. Like as far as like all time greats, Pacquiao would surpass him. He'd been dominating like so many eras, dominating the top guys in so many eras, but I just don't see Pacquiao taking that fight, and I just don't think it's real. Whenever I hear Abu Dhabi, hear like these, massive amount of money, I just don't, I don't buy it, right? I don't buy it. So Terence Crawford's, it's gonna be stuck for a while, and he's honestly in an interesting position, somewhat like Lomachenko, right? With Top Rank, and it's funny because when they went to ESPN, that was their two stars. It was it was three stars. Manny Pacquiao, he lost immediately to. I'm just like blanking on names right now. He lost immediately to the Australian Horn. He lost immediately to him, right? Then you had Lomachenko. He dominated, right? But you were trying to find opponents for him. You built up the Teofimo fight. That paid off, right? That paid off. Then you built a superstar because Teofimo won. And I think Top Rank wanted him to win. Now, what do you do with Lomachenko, right? Does Lomachenko just... I think, honestly, if you're Top Rank, you put Lomachenko versus Tank. You take that chance. You get whatever profit you can from that fight. It's a pay-per-view fight. It's a big fight. I think, and Tank's a pay-per-view guy, and I think that everybody comes out making some profit on that fight, right? And I don't think there's anywhere else to go with Lomachenko. I don't think you have him just wreck all your stars at 130. I don't think you do that. I don't think you have him wreck all your stars at like 125. I don't think you don't do that, right? There's no point because Lomachenko's gonna wreck all of them. Now people are all selling on Lomachenko's stock. I'm not. I know how great he is. I know that he fought a guy that was way bigger than him and hit way harder than him. And I know that he put that guy to the absolute limit. And I thought the fight was a draw. So I'm not selling no Lomachenko stock. And I think that Top Rank smart enough. They know that he'll probably smoke all those guys. And if you think Shakur Stevenson is ready for Lomachenko, you're out of your mind, right? But the fight that makes sense is Tank Davis. Tank Davis needs an opponent right now. Will PBC put Tank Davis in Lomachenko? That's the question. Will Floyd Mayweather? I don't think Floyd Mayweather or PBC would do that, right? But that's the logical fight to make next, and that's a pay-per-view fight. Because if Tank Davis is a pay-per-view guy now, and that's what they're telling me, and I kind of believe it. He's very entertaining. Every time he fights, there's a huge crowd. Even in COVID, he got whatever crowd he can get, right? And the pay-per-view numbers were not bad, right? The pay-per-view sales are not bad. I think people are underestimating Santa Cruz's selling power a little bit, but pay-per-view numbers were not bad. Great fight, off a great performance. Him and Lomachenko makes the most sense from both sides. If you're Tank Davis, I think your only other option is who? Who else is the other option? They don't really have a lot of guys at PBC at that weight that can sell and will sell his opponent. Gary Russell, who's undersized, but no one really knows Gary Russell. Gary Russell is not going to sell. He's a good fighter. He's a damn good fighter, but he's not going to sell. He's undersized. I just don't think that fight sells. I don't think you can do pay-per-view with that. If he's a pay-per-view star and he wants to sell fights on his own, right? He wants to be his own, he's going to have to earn that. And if he could beat Lomachenko on his own, then he even blows up even more. But right now, he's not a big enough name like Floyd to where he's going to just put him against anyone and he's going to sell. He's not that. He's not Canelo yet. Even Canelo's going to have a hard time doing that, right? So I think that's what you do with Lomachenko. But Lomachenko's kind of in a weird spot too, because who's his next opponent? When's his next fight? What's Top Rank going to do with him? And that's what he's at with Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford, to me, I think is done with Top Rank. I don't think he's going to fight anymore. There's no opponent that even makes sense unless they do the Ramirez Taylor fight. But why, if you have Ramirez and Taylor, why would you sell them? Why would you give them to the wolves of Terence Crawford? Now that fight makes less sense, unless Terence Crawford says I'll sign a contract on that. But why would you even want that? Because there's no one for him to fight. So I think Terence Crawford and Top Rank are done. I can't see him fighting again. And if Top Rank, was kind about it and they release him from his contract early and he could get one big fight, get in with PBC, maybe they go right to Spence, right? If Spence beats Garcia, or they go give him a Thurman, you know what I mean? They give him a Porter, or they give him a Ugas. They give him one of those fights. In the PBC, they know how to do it. They'll give him a fight to build him up. A tough fight, good matchup, something that people will want to see. They'll put it on Fox or Showtime, and then they'll set up the Spence fight. Right? If Spence could beat Garcia, and that fight's coming up. And I haven't truly broke that fight down. Right now, early picks just from everything I've seen before, right? I'm going to pick Spence. But Spence is coming off the car crash and everything like that. But from what I've seen his training, everything, he looks like Spence. It looks like Spence. It don't look like any hitch to his step. And if it's Spence, he's going to win that fight. Because what Danny Garcia wants to be at, that's where Spence is at his best at. So it's an interesting matchup. It's an entertaining fight because the way the matchups make fights, and that's an interesting matchup. But I don't want to get off to that. I'll talk about that fight later when I can truly scout it out. But that's what I'm saying. So Terence Crawford, him and Lomachenko are kind of like a no man's land, and they're kind of relying on the PBC, both of them. And then you got UFC coming up. You got Conor versus Poirier, which is these big fights. And this is happening in boxing. It's happening in MMA. There's these big fights being made in very short time span. Like I'm talking about weeks. Like the UFC is going to turn around their champ, right, in their flyweight division, and he's going to turn around and fight. He just fought this past weekend. He's going to fight December 18th. Like that's insane. This is no rest. This is just straight back to a camp. Now he had an easy performance in that fight, and the guy he's fighting had a quick performance in his fight, Moreno, who I really like, and I really like this matchup. But that's, I mean, it's great for them. There's another payday and everything. I just don't know what it does for the craft, and we're gonna see over time. But I think this is how it's gonna be, especially in the COVID thing, is that you're gonna need quick turnarounds. They're gonna want quick turnarounds from these guys because there's no the pay, right? They don't have a crowd or anything like that, so they need to put these cards together quicker. Like I already have this guy. I already know he's here. I'm going to keep him here, and we're just going to put him in the next card. It's going to be like that. They're going to recycle a lot of these guys because they already have them. They don't want to keep putting new guys in the system and the whole thing. They want to keep it flowing. So I get that. But so you have Conor Poirier, and it's kind of quick. You know what I mean? It's a month from now. I haven't seen a lot of marketing for it yet, but it won't be hard to market Conor McGregor. And it's an interesting matchup. And I think in my head, right, when they first made it, I just thought Conor McGregor was going to blow out Poirier. Right, he already did before. It's a rematch, but Poirier was a lot younger. You know what I mean? And then Conor McGregor, he's older. He's getting a little bit older now. He's not old. He should be in his prime, but I'm just, he's getting older. He's a little long in the tooth, right? Poirier's been on a roll, fought for the title. I think he even was interim champ, right? If I'm correct about that. And the thing that has me interested about this matchup, right, is it goes back to Floyd fighting, Conor fighting Floyd, and Conor not being able to get any power in his punches for that fight. And I think that kind of messed with Conor's head a little bit. And I noticed that when he fought Cerrone, and even like when he started his training camp and he hit the bag and he brought in his old boxing coaches, that he tried to turn himself into kind of like a technique of like a slugger. The way he throws his right hand, it's like a looping right hand. It's a lot of hip movement with it. It's a lot of like upper body movement with it. It's like a clubber. It feels like a clubber. It's very interesting. It's not bad technique. It's just interesting that he took it because it's not really what his style is. And with that means he's going to put himself closer to you. He's going to put himself, he wants to get the power into it, but that power is going to make him more open. Now, I have scouted Dustin Poirier for this fight, and Dustin Poirier's defense is horrible. It's truly horrible. If you watch Dustin Poirier hit the bag, right? If you just seen him hit the bag, you would think like, damn, why doesn't this guy just box? Like, why? He could probably just box. Like, he's pretty damn good, right? And I get that, the balance he has, the combos and stuff like that. But the reason that hitting the bag is different than like being in the ring is that in the ring, he falls apart. His legs fall apart. Going backwards, he's pretty awful at. What he's best at, his best thing he does is when his feet are set, right? His feet are set and he's comboing off where his feet are absolutely set. Like he locks in, right? If he puts you against the fence and he puts his feet and they're not going to move, they're just set in the spot. He could combo off that thing. He's probably one of the best to do that, honestly, in MMA, of comboing with his feet set. Going forward. Going backwards, he loses himself. He could land a good shot going backwards. Offensively, he has little tricks, but defensively, it's just a mess going backwards. And going forward, he's very good going forward, but he leaves openings. He's just not a defensive guy. This defense is just not his thing. He's just, I want to put pressure on you. He's one of the best combination punchers in MMA. And I just think that if Conor has his style, right, where he wants to be more aggressive, get more power in his shots, he's going to create more openings. So Poirier needs to watch the Nate Diaz fight. It's the most important fight he has to watch is the Nate Diaz fight. And how when Nate Diaz pushed Conor back, right, and he pushed him back and he started breaking Conor's will, can he get him to that point? Because that's what his strategy needs to be. I need to break Conor's will. I can't let him push me back. And I can't stand in front of him. I have to move forward. The difference with Nate and Poirier, though, is that Nate could take a shot. I don't know if Poirier could take a shot. And from what I've seen, Poirier cannot take a shot, really. He got knocked out by Conor before. So he's going to have to take shots. He's going to have to push him forward, and he's going to have to look for a late stoppage, a late success in the fight of breaking Conor going back. I don't think he's going to do it. I think Conor's going to win the fight. I think he's going to do it impressively. But I'm very interested with Conor's new technique that he wants the power and shots, the looping, look at like if you YouTube Conor shadow boxing recent ring. Look at the stance he has. It's like a pressure fighter. It's like a brawler. And doesn't really go. And if you look at what he did Cerrone, right, because he hurt Cerrone early. And I thought he hit Cerrone with like a fly. He went for like a well, Cerrone shot and he went into Conor's leg and he was hurt from there. So wherever Conor did, it looked amazing, but Cerrone was out on his feet, right? So the technique worked. But look at the shots he landed, especially when Cerrone fell against the fence. He really looped that shot. And I think that's just going to be Conor's going to use this because he's going to plan to go into, in his mind, he wants to go back to boxing and he wants to have power when he goes back. So he's going to be like a brawler. That's what he's thinking in his head. It's like, I'm going to get the power from there. So if he brings that style, right, and Poirier's not hurt early, say if he's not hurt early and he brings that style, he will be able to get hit. So they will trade early. Now, I think Conor has a pretty decent chin, but what I'm curious is if Poirier starts landing and starts throwing off Conor, and then the pressure starts at him, like the Nate Diaz fight. I don't expect this. I expect Conor to land. I expect Conor to keep his good distance while he's like slowly just pushing Poirier back and just landing a shot between Poirier's bad defense, right? Landing a big left hand and Poirier's bad defense and Poirier's being hurt, and Conor finish the fight because what Conor does. And it'll look impressive, and he'll be back on the mountaintop of UFC again. I was watching, Khabib. I didn't get to talk about the Khabib fight, and just how great that guy is. And I think that I always kind of sold him short because I always thought like, well, I don't know. I just thought like, well, what if someone just stops the takedown, right? Like, what if someone just stops the takedown? And the Iaquinta fight always had me like, well, I see Iaquinta's not a great fighter. He's a very good fighter, but he's not a great fighter, and he gave Khabib trouble, right? But sometimes you're just gonna have trouble with fighters. You know what I mean? Like in MMA, there's so many different matchups, and certain guys are good at a certain thing. And Iaquinta was a short replacement in that fight, so maybe that's why Khabib had problems with him. But Khabib is just so damn good at what he does. Like he's just so elite. He's so absolutely elite at what he does, and his wrestling is so good. It's just superior. Like I always thought like Conor would beat him in a rematch after that fight with Gaethje, and how he just like Poirier did the same thing when he fought him. Is he completely fell out of his style because he panicked. Like you just panic because he's so good. You get so scared. You're just like, I just want to land something, hopefully. And the problem is too is that Gaethje did land. That's where I think where like Gaethje started falling apart mentally. Is he landed big shots and Khabib could take him. Khabib's stand up is not great, but his stand up to like takedown and the pressure he's giving you and the how confident he is that if he gets a hand on it, he can take him down. So it allows him to do flying knees, and it allows him to come in with giant overhand rights because he's always falling into you. It broke Gaethje, and it broke him quick. Like you could tell in the second round, like he was broken. Like you were like, oh man, this is done. Like he is out of his thing, and he was so nervous to go in there. Like the same thing with Poirier, like they were just so out of their style, and I just thought like, well, they're scared. It's not that. It's just that he's so good at what he does. It just makes you fall apart at what you're doing. And I don't think like if him and Conor fought, and that's what Dana's trying to get done. I'm going to have a hard time picking Conor to win that fight. I just think Khabib is just so damn good at what he does. And the style of, he takes a man down, they have no answer for it. And Gaethje supposed to be a good wrestler, and he didn't have an answer for him. And he triangled him. Like he just completely dominated him. It didn't look like he even belonged on the ground with him. To me, he's probably the most dominant guy I've ever seen in the UFC. And people, I know John Jones got mad or, was arguing like who's the GOAT or whatever, but I don't know, like GOAT, whatever. If they fought each other, I'm picking Khabib. If they were the same size, I pick Khabib. And there's not a lot of guys that I think that would give him a hard time. Like to me, one of the most talented guys that doesn't get credit is Cain Velasquez, right? And he's very short-lived, and I don't know why that is. His body fell apart. It wasn't there, right? In his prime, right, and he fought John Jones in his prime, I would pick Cain Velasquez to win that fight. In his prime, if he fought Khabib, and they were the same size, I'm saying, like they were the same size. I think I'm gonna pick Khabib. Like I just haven't seen anyone challenge his wrestling. I haven't seen it, and it was more impressive what Conor did in his fight because I always thought Conor didn't look good in that fight at all. But when you see what he does to guys, and then you see like the little things Conor did, it made him a little struggle, a little bit with the wrestling early. You're just like, damn, Conor's very good. And Khabib's that damn good. Like he just dominated. He dominated him. So Khabib, like, if he retires, I think the Conor fight, like, it would make the most sense. And now Khabib's a guy, like, he stands by what he believes in, right? And he says he's not going to fight anymore. We'll see, right? Because every fighter's always said that. and then they come back. But we'll see. But that's the big fight. That's the money fight. Like, that's the fight that makes the most sense. I'm now on the side where most people were at, and I'm not like saying like I'm actually late to this. I think Khabib would win that fight. And let's see how Conor looks. Let's see what Conor does. It's him and Poirier's a damn good matchup. UFC is interesting right now because where are they going to go at 155? Like, it's really relying on Conor to win the title back. If Khabib doesn't go back, right? You don't want like Chandler to be the champ. So I imagine they're going to put Chandler up against Gaethje. They're going to put Oliveira versus Ferguson, which is a really good fight. And Ferguson, I think, is shot. I think that Oliveira is going to look very impressive in that fight. And it's going to be interesting what they do if Chandler and Gaethje fight, whoever wins that, right? And then you have Oliveira beats Ferguson and Conor beats him. Well, you got three guys. Who's fighting who at that point, and who's going to fight for the interim title? It's gonna be Conor. So we're gonna decide between Chandler and Oliveira, and I have a feeling it's gonna be Chandler or Gaethje, whoever wins that fight. And Oliveira will just have to wait again, and just not a big enough name, and is not gonna sound like the other guys are, who are a little bit more well known. Another big thing happening, and this will be the thing I'll leave the end the podcast on. Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez left Golden Boy, right? He got released from Golden Boy. I don't know how, Golden Boy has lost. If you go back and look, like, at every star that PBC had, they were signed with Golden Boy. And somehow they lost all of them, right? They lost all of them. I don't know who signed the contracts or whatever. They lost all of them. So every guy in PBC, Golden Boy had at one point. Like, look at what PBC's thing. Imagine Golden Boy having all the guys they have and then all the guys that PBC has. Now they lost Canelo Alvarez. Like, PBC, Golden Boy, it has stars. It's going, like, the writing's on the wall that this is not going to last long. This is not going to last long. The writing is on the wall here. But they lost Canelo Alvarez, the biggest star in boxing. He left his own. He was going to go PBC. He was going to he was going to sign, like, I think what he wants to do is sign short-term deals with, like, PBC. Like, I'll fight three guys, right, on PBC, then I'll be free agent again. Pay-per-view. Well, there wasn't enough time to make a fight. So everybody else has been making fight short notices. PBC said no on this one. Canelo goes back to DAZN, right? This is because he's the biggest free agent in boxing, and signs a deal for most likely a 2-fight deal. He's going to fight Colin Smith. And Colin Smith's not like a give me fight. It's not at all. Like, this is a tough matchup. Now, people may not know Colin Smith. In America, he's a British fighter. He's an English fighter. 168, probably he won a tournament at 168 with all the toughest 168 guys, and he beat them all, right? Now, it wasn't Caleb Plant in there. Caleb Plant has emerged lately, and I think he's probably one of the most talented fighters at 168, but Colin Smith's right there with anyone. And Canelo Alvarez is fighting him, and just kind of like, I need to get a fight this year, I'll fight him, right? That's how great Canelo Alvarez is, and that's how good he is for boxing, is that he's going to fight on a short notice, right? Like, just throw a fight together. I'm going to fight Colin Smith. And this is going to be a great matchup. And Colin Smith is a lot bigger than Canelo. And he's very skilled, like very, very skilled. And then Canelo probably set up a fight with Triple G right after, because Triple G fights the day before. Canelo to complete control of his career, and he's going to make a lot of money going forward. And he got out of the Golden Boy thing because they didn't have the opponents for him. They couldn't get the matchups they wanted, and Canelo didn't want to become like Terence Crawford and just stuck somewhere. And he made the right moves, and his management made the right moves, and now Canelo Alvarez is in a great matchup that I'll break down later, but just, you got to really appreciate it. And you got to appreciate the Eddie Hearn and DAZN putting it together and not having, being mad about the other deal that fell apart. And Canelo not being mad about the other deal that fell apart and putting this together. And just creating another opening for fighters. And these fights are happening, and boxing's picking up speed again. And the UFC's in a good spot too, because they got Conor McGregor back. They got Izzy. If the Nagano could get a title shot, that would be very good for them. So the fighting's in a good spot, and I'm good. I'm glad I'm back. This has been The Weigh-In.